Good, how are you? Good to see you.
How are you guys? James Camp, newest member of our team. How are you? John, it's the rules for you guys. That's awesome. Hey, Keisha. Morning.
Hi,
How are you?
good, how are you?
See ya. Doing well. Did you get that red hair?
I'm gonna scoot you guys over a little bit more. Fan out over here.
No, you're good.
How about you?
Perfect.
Ron?
So Pat, it's just us talking.
Just you and me. Okay. Yeah, and all I'm gonna do is fill in
Okay.
whatever you might.
Perfect. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us on a beautiful summer morning here in downtown Louisville. It's going to be another great and exciting and fun weekend in downtown as we continue to roll with great momentum forward through this summer. A year and a half ago, I stood inside of Metro Hall right here during my inauguration, and I talked about the message I'd heard loud and clear from the people of Louisville, that it was time to move our city in a new direction. I heard that over and over again. And for the past year and a half as mayor, that's exactly what my administration and I have been focused on doing. Working in partnership with folks from across the community, at Metro Council, nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, businesses, faith leaders, all working together in partnership to move our city in a new direction. And I'm proud to say that we are making progress on that goal. For example, we've reached across the aisle in Frankfort and bridged the urban-rural divide in a way that we have never seen before in our city. In conversations with Kentucky Senate and House leaders like President Robert Stivers and Speaker David Osborne, we've talked about the fundamental similarities that cities and rural areas of our state have in common all across Kentucky. And as a result, we've seen what's happened. The Kentucky General Assembly has recently invested over $1 billion right here in our city. This includes one-time allocations to support major economic development and educational initiatives like the Community Care Campus, which will help us prevent family and youth homelessness, building the LUMED district to have a world-class medical research and educational district, transforming the Belvedere right here in the heart of downtown Louisville to have a world-class destination for people to gather and enjoy, renovating the Louisville Gardens and capitalizing on the new film industry that we're creating across our state, and so many more, including significant investments in the University of Louisville to continue their great trajectory right here in downtown for a new medical building. And it also includes over $200 million in the Kentucky Fairgrounds to continue to build in the great infrastructure that we have for our tourism, convention, and hospitality industry to welcome people from around the world right here to our city. Just think about it, $1 billion from Frankfort for Louisville. That right there alone tells you that our city is moving in a new direction. But of course, that's not even close to everything that we're working on. There is so much more. And one of the things that we are focused on doing is capitalizing on this momentum with a new economic development strategy and action plan. Our city hadn't had a new economic development plan in over a decade. So last year, I invited 80 stakeholders from around the city, business leaders, civic leaders, educational institution leaders, nonprofit leaders, religious leaders, and members of the labor community, and so many others to come together and talk about the challenges and opportunities that our city has and that our city faces with respect to economic development. We listened to these folks and got great feedback, and together, we created a new plan, the Growing Louisville Together plan, that some of my colleagues with me here today worked so hard on, listening to members of the community and putting in place a detailed economic development action plan called Growing Louisville Together that is moving us in a new direction. This is a bold, results-oriented, specific economic development plan based on the fundamental principle that for our city to prosper, people in every neighborhood of our city must thrive economically. By implementing this plan, we'll create broader economic opportunity by making Louisville an easier place to invest, to relocate, to expand. We created this plan to guide our decisions and actions because we have to act now. There is no time to wait. And since releasing this plan in December, taking action is what we have already done. For example, we've already introduced reforms to our land development code to make it easier to build housing all across the city. We're making bold new investments in our parks and libraries and community centers to ensure that people in every part of have great gathering and public spaces to really focus on those quality needs, those quality amenities that people are looking for to improve their quality of life. We're investing in the LUMED district that I just talked about so we can attract even more skilled healthcare heroes to live, to work, to research in our city. And one thing I'm so incredibly excited about is we've launched a new nonprofit organization called Thrive by 5 Louisville. And this is the first step to creating free early childhood learning for every 3 and 4-year-old student across our entire city. That is a great investment in the future of our city that will truly transform us for years ahead. And there's one more step that we're taking that I'm so excited to talk about today. One big recommendation from the Growing Louisville Together plan was how we implement the plan, to how we move our city forward in a new direction. And the proposal that came back was to create a new public-private partnership to lead economic development forward. And so I'm so excited that next week we are going to file the Articles of Incorporation for the Louisville Economic Development Alliance, also known as LEDA. Again, that's the Louisville Economic Development Alliance. This is the creation of a public-private partnership that, based on the feedback we got locally, the research that we did nationally, talking to other cities around the country, is clearly a national best practice. It was a strong recommendation. We're implementing a structure that has been used successfully to guide economic development plans and implement them successfully in cities that have seen great growth across the country, including Cincinnati, Columbus, and Philadelphia. I want to thank my colleagues on Metro Council who committed $1.5 million towards the first year of the Louisville Economic Development Alliance. That was in the budget that just recently passed. And I want to give special recognition to Metro Council President Marcus Winkler and Councilman Jeff Hudson, who served as some of those 80 stakeholders that joined us for each one of those meetings from the beginning. Thanks to them, and thanks to all the colleagues on Metro Council. Now, that investment is not all that's being invested, because we have already seen great desire from the business community to invest in the Louisville Economic Development Alliance and to be a part of this exciting plan to move our city forward in a new direction. We have already secured commitments from the private sector, approximately $2 million of private commitments that will be invested into this new alliance that will help kickstart LEDA's operations. Right now, we're finalizing the board structure for LEDA that we'll announce in the coming weeks, but it will include representatives from business organizations, educational institutions, organized labor, local government, and other nonprofits. Everyone's perspective on this board is going to be important because we all need to continue to work in partnership together. Just as we've worked in partnership with our friends in Frankfurt, we need to work in partnership with one another here in Louisville to make our city grow, to give everyone across the city great economic opportunity, regardless of where they were born and when they were born. Everyone needs opportunity. We need to focus on developing more access to capital, developing talent, helping small businesses grow, creating good paying, new great paying career path jobs. We need to build a robust small business development ecosystem and do so much more to support our entrepreneurs. All of this and more is what we're going to focus on. We're going to work closely with other organizations in Louisville like GLI and YPAL and Kentuckiana Works to focus on workforce development and talent attraction. And one of the things I'm incredibly excited about is focusing on building a new brand for our city, a new citywide brand that everyone here locally gets excited about, and also that we can use to attract people to our city. The articles of incorporation will be filed early next week, and this new entity will be incorporated as a 501c6 nonprofit. The first LEDA board meeting will be held in July, and we invite everyone from the media to join us. A date and time will be sent out for public notice, and the LEDA board meetings will be open to the media and the public, so we hope to see people there. And also, once the board approves this, we hope that some of the members of the Metro Economic Development team also be contracted to work for this new organization. This team will include project managers, policy and research experts, and lending and small business personnel, several of whom are with us here today. The board will name an interim CEO this summer and will also launch a search nationally for a new chief executive officer to help move the Louisville Economic Development Alliance forward in partnership. Our goal is to have a full-time CEO in place by the end of this year. This is a big, bold plan. We are focused on implementing it and implementing it right. And the Louisville Economic Development Alliance is the way that we will do this. We have been so blessed to have so many people help us in this role. Folks from our economic development team that are here with us today, volunteers that have given countless hours to help lead this effort and contribute. But leading this all has been our Deputy Mayor for Economic Development. Deputy Mayor Pat Malloy has given countless hours since he joined our team just over a year ago. He quickly recognized the need for a detailed plan, the need to not just have a plan, but to have a way to implement the plan. And he has worked harder than anyone else with the business community, with educational leaders, with nonprofit leaders to bring our city together around a new economic development plan that's going to lead us in a new direction. So without further ado, although maybe we'll wait for the sirens to pass 1 second. That's for you, Pat. That's your introduction. I don't know if it's coming. Ladies and gentlemen, our amazing... Oh. No. So now, without further ado, our amazing Deputy Mayor for Economic Development, who has been the leading force behind the development of the Louisville Economic Development Alliance, Pat Malloy. Pat?
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks. Well, we've seen the limits of the mayor's powers this morning. He can't stop fire trucks or UPS jets from going over, so let me say just a few words, and then we'll take a few questions from you. First thing I want to say is thank you. Mayor alluded to this group of people over my left and my right shoulder. Most of you in the press won't know their names. They do all the real work of economic development in this city, and it's varied work. There's a woman on the back row back here, Melissa Ryan, that has built, and we got to preview it yesterday afternoon. She's built, that's fine, you can clap for her, she's quite smart. She's built, Mayor hadn't even seen it yet, a beta site, a website with the entire plan laid out. Katie Lippman over my left shoulder built a database. Melissa has taken that database and put it in a website, and it'll be a public website where you can go and see all 272 or 82 tasks that were identified in this plan. You can find out whether they're underway, near term, long term, where they are in process, so there's some accountability and transparency in it. And you can also drill down and find out who owns it, because the Economic Development Cabinet won't own all this stuff. You know, growing a police department's HR team and workforce, that's the chief of police. That's Paul Humphrey and his team's job. And a lot of these things get delegated out to all the other stakeholders. So I wanted to say a special word thanking. One of the most humbling things about the last 13 or 14 months for me is the depth of talent. And anytime you hear anybody in the community saying, oh, they work for the government, or they're government bureaucrats, or they're this or they're that, that's nonsense. This is a talented, hardworking, really smart group of people behind me, and a subset of this group has met every Monday for a year, starting at 4:30. My good friend Steve Miller, we go back 1,000 years, he's volunteered his time for a year. He chairs the implementation task force, and we stay till 5:30 or 6 every Monday drilling down, arguing, haranguing, whiteboarding, trying to take all of the work that the 82 volunteers put together and put it in a cohesive plan. So I want to say thank you to all these folks. I'm not going to name all their names behind me, but I want to thank them. I want to thank the private sector. They stepped up, and by private sector, I mean sort of non-governmental. We're not going to name all the names of the new board members today, but not only does Dr. Schatzel want to participate at the University of Louisville, but the mayor got a call from the president of the University of Kentucky who wants to sit on the Louisville Economic Development Alliance board, and he's going to, Dr. Capilouto. That's a big deal. And the mayor talked a minute ago about bridges to Frankfurt. Well, shortening that gap out I-64 between Lexington and Louisville, that matters a lot because it's a big piece of the economic engine of this state. Private sector, this body, and I won't get all lawyerly on you, but it's a 501c6, which is a not-for-profit corporation. And the incorporators, the people that put their signatures to it, that asked the mayor to do this and are supporting it, are 4 private sector people. Bill Moore, the head of UPS Airlines, Kim Hallbauer, who runs Fifth Third Bank in this market, Jim Allen, who's the vice chair of this Baird company behind your backs, media folks, and Conrad Daniels, the president of HJI Solutions, also the chair of, also the State Chamber Board, and also the chair of GLI, incorporate this body. And they gave us, you all may remember, those of you that attended some of those meetings, they did a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, at the beginning of this thing and beginning of this process. And they told us all the good stuff that's going on in Louisville. Getting the wind up thing here, Caitlin. The good stuff that's going on in Louisville, which is a diverse economy, but Larry Gigrich looked at the mayor and me and he said, you've got 2 years, you've got to act with a sense of urgency because your population's not growing in this town. It's flat, and it's been flat for a decade. So at the heart, there's 4 pillars to this deal, but at the heart of the plan, it's about attracting people, talent, to put their roots here, to live here, build businesses here, and start careers here. So there's a lot more to talk about. The purpose of this, if you ask the fundamental purpose, it's about continuity. It's about taking the long view.